Hi folks, welcome to another episode of the 59th Minute FPL podcast. I'm the FPL General, recording on Tuesday the 10th of December from a very wet and windy Glasgow. So hopefully the microphone doesn't pick up too much of the storm outside the window, and fingers crossed my internet will survive this next half an hour as well. So going to look ahead to Gameweek 17. It's nice to be recording on a Tuesday again. It's nice to have a normal schedule this week because last week was the busiest one of the year for me, trying to get content out there with the midweek deadline and everything else. So it's nice. The weather might not be calm, but at least my working week is a little bit calmer this week. So same format as usual. Going to get straight into it. No new members of the 59th Minute Club this week. There was some very close calls, a couple of, actually 3 58-minute appearances. John Stones, Marvellous Nakamba and Joelinton at Newcastle. So all three of those guys were very lucky to avoid getting the unwanted membership card for the 59th Minute Club. Trent Alexander-Arnold came off the bench and played 50 minutes, so missed out on the clean sheet points by just 10 minutes. So that was frustrating for me as an owner. Of course, I sold Robertson when Liverpool decided to keep a clean sheet, but the legend that is Martin Kelly, who was his replacement, managed to outscore him. So that I didn't mind that too much. A quick review of Game Week 16. How did it go for me? It wasn't great. It wasn't awful. 57 points. It was enough to give me a third red arrow on the bounce from 288k overall, dropped to 342k. So again, rank wise, I don't tend to worry about rank too much at this stage of the season because the only rank that matters is where you are in Game Week 38. But obviously I would like to be a little bit higher at this point, or lower, depending on how you look at it. But again, wildcard's still available, all chips still available, so I'm still pretty hopeful of a good finish this season. And there's a question later about, what do we regard as a good season nowadays? So I'll come back to that question when I'm at that section. Again, a bit last couple of weeks, it's really only been 3 or 4 players every week that have been getting points for me, and it was the same in Game Week 16. I captained Vardy, so I've had Vardy for 5 weeks. I've captained him for 5 weeks, so he solved all my captaincy problems that I was having earlier in the season. So good to see him get the points again. Dele Alli, who I brought in for Tielemans, so that was a double move. I had 2 free transfers. I got rid of Robertson and Tielemans, and I brought in Kelly and Ali. So those 2 transfers worked out pretty well. Kelly and Ali outscored the other 2, 17 points to 8 in Game Week 16. So hopefully Kelly and Ali can continue that over the next couple of game weeks. It was Vardy captain, Ali points, Kelly points, and Jimenez with the assist were the only 4 players who did anything for me. 7 blanks. Manny didn't turn up, so Cantwell came off the bench for a massive 1-pointer. Dean Henderson made a fabulous save in that game. I wish I didn't see it because it just annoyed me seeing it. Cantwell was denied by a very good save by Henderson. Yeah, so blanks from Cantwell, De Bruyne, another one for Wilfred Zaha. I'll come back to him later because there's a question. Abraham, blank, and absolutely nothing from the defenders and goalkeeper apart from Kelly. So a 0-pointer from Nick Pope. Well done to anyone who moved to Guaita a couple of weeks ago from Nick Pope. That was a good move. Nothing from Trent, as I mentioned, and nothing from Lundstrom again either. I think that's 5 games without a clean sheet now for Sheffield United, so they're not as tight as they were. Lundstrom, though, is going nowhere. He was unlucky not to get attacking points in that game. He arguably could have had an assist for the Baldock goal, and I think he had the ball in the back of the net as well, which was ruled out for VAR. So, Lundstrom stays, no issues there. But overall, a pretty disappointing game week. 57 points in any week is usually okay, but it was the fact that so many players that I didn't own, performed really well. The Rashfords, Aubameyangs, Madison has been hurting me last couple of weeks as well. So yeah, hopefully Game Week 17 is better than Game Week 16 was. A quick watch list update. 5 players I've added to my watch list following Game Week 16. First one is Anthony Martial, 7.6 million. back in the starting 11 and back on the score sheet against Manchester City. Took his goal really well. United have great fixtures coming up as well. 2 great results against Spurs and City. Now we face Everton, Watford, Newcastle and Burnley. And then it's Arsenal, which is a good fixture for attackers as well. So I like Martial as an option. I do prefer Rashford. Rashford is on fire in the last couple of games. So Rashford's the guy I would probably prioritise there over Martial. But I think if cash is an issue, that Martial is a fine alternative there as well. Obviously, injury-prone players, which I don't like, which is why I like Rashford there as well. And penalties, Rashford seems to be taking all the penalties the last couple of weeks as well. So that's another plus in his favour. Richarlison, 7.8 million at Everton. 4 goals in his last 5 games for Richarlison. So we've got to take notice of what he's doing now. Even though he's a player, he can be quite a frustrating FPL asset to own over the last couple of years. And I just think at 7.8 million, there's a lot of other options. Madison, Martial, Pulisic, Grealish. There's probably a lot of options I would go to before I would go to Richarlison. But he's definitely one to think about at least. But I do prefer those alternatives at the minute. But he's on the watch list, and I'll keep an eye on him over the next couple of games. A lot depends on what happens with the managerial position there with Everton. We need to wait and see who's going to come in and how that affects Richarlison and the rest of the team. Harry Kane is back on my watch list. He's been on it, he's been off it, he's back on it now. I think any player who scores 16 points, you have to take notice. 10.9 million Harry costs these days. Great performance against Burnley, but he's not going to play Burnley every week at home. 2 great goals. I do like Spurs fixtures 19, 20 and 21, so I think a lot of people will be eyeing up Harry Kane for that little spell over Christmas with captaincy in mind there as well. But when it comes to Spurs, I still favour Ali and Son, as a double up rather than, I've got Ali. I'm going to be looking to get Son in rather than Harry Kane. I just prefer him as an option. Midfielder, extra point for a goal, can get a clean sheet point as well. I just think he could easily outscore Kane in terms of goals as well between now and the end of the season. So I much prefer Heung-min Son, but Kane definitely an option. Bit of a differential as well. Not a lot of people have him. In the top 100k. Looking at some of the stats here as well from Fantasy Football Hub this morning. Kane had 6 shots, so that's what we like to see. That's what we've seen of Kane in seasons gone by, 5 or 6 shots a game. Just 2 of them were on target though, and he did have just 3 touches in the opposition penalty area. So some good stats there and some bad stats as well. So make of that what you wish. A couple of defenders I've added to the watch list this week as well. Johnny Evans, he's gone up to 5.2 million now, so he's 0.1 million more expensive than Soyuncu. Scored a goal at the weekend. Evans is actually outscoring Soyuncu now for the season at 75 to 70 in terms of FPL points there. Again, looking at the stats, one that jumped out at me this week was Johnny Evans, 4 shots in the box. So a lot of Madison's set pieces, he tries to find Evans with those. And in that goal that Evans scored at the weekend, you could see Soyuncu was doing the blocking off to allow Evans to get that space. And it was an excellent header. I didn't expect him to score it. Stuck it in the top corner. Really good header that gave the keeper no chance. So I probably still prefer Soyuncu, especially now that he is 0.1 cheaper than Evans. But I think both are really good options, and I do prefer those 2 centre backs as opposed to forking out the cash for the fullbacks. Pereira's quite expensive. Chilwell not so much, but again it's he's about 6 million now. So I do like the cash saving for the centre backs, who both of them are attacking threats as well. Soyuncu, I don't know how he didn't score at the weekend. Ball hit Tom Heaton in the face. I don't know how he managed to save that. Pure luck really. So on another day, Soyuncu would have been on the score sheet again, and that would have been another Madison assist. So Madison is a player I really want to get as well as soon as possible. Another defender added to my watch list, Gary Cahill, Crystal Palace, 4.5 million. Picked up 2 bonus points in that game against Watford to get himself 8 points, coming back from injury. I brought in Martin Kelly, who got me 8 points. So I'm very happy with Kelly, and I think he's going to be a good asset to have over the next couple of weeks. And I just really like Crystal Palace defensively because they do struggle to score goals. They sit back and defend. A lot of defensive-minded midfielders in there, the likes of MacArthur, Milivojevic, and Kouyaté, and these guys. So they do set up really well, and they're very hard to break down. So I like the goalkeeper, I like Kelly, and I like Gary Cahill as well. If you don't have any Palace defenders already, Kelly's up to 4.3 now. Cahill's only 0.2 more, which he might be a more secure long-term player in that defence. So I've just added Kelly to the watch list, and I haven't actually ruled out a Palace double up as well. Just long term, they've got really good fixtures, so I do like them defensively. 5 players that have been removed from my watch list this week very quickly. Matt Doherty, as much as I love him, going forward, Wolves have only got 1 clean sheet in their last 8 games. A couple of tricky fixtures coming up. They've got Spurs coming up soon as well, so Doherty's just too expensive anyway this season. And 4 strikers are gone from the watch list. Chris Wood, last 2 game weeks, he's played 64 minutes and 58 minutes. His stats have dropped off as well. Burnley are just pretty rubbish, so I'm not really interested in any of their players. Lacazette, benched by Freddie Ljungberg. What are you doing, Freddie? Lacazette is one of your best attackers. Just don't understand that one unless there's an injury there that we don't know about. But I didn't watch the Arsenal game last night. Sounded like it was a pretty awful game, as they often are between teams like Arsenal and West Ham these days. But by all means, the guy Martinelli, played really well and got himself on the score sheet. So that's probably not good news for Lacazette. The young kid could keep his place, while Ljungberg is there. So that puts me right off Lacazette. Gabriel Jesus is gone as well because Aguero will probably be back pretty soon. So it's probably too late to get on the Jesus bandwagon now. And I've removed Mason Greenwood as well because with Martial back in the team, Greenwood's probably not going to get much game time. So that's just a quick watch list update. Moving on to the questions now. Lots of really good questions this week. So I've picked out 7 of the best, which cover some of the main talking points. First one came in from FPL King. Is Ali and Son the new Sterling and KDB? So, simple answer is I think they probably are. Spurs are looking pretty hot going forward. Last couple of game weeks, I brought in Ali. I would like to bring in Son as well. I like that double up now. I think I probably mentioned last week that I wasn't too keen on the double up, but the way they played against Burnley has me a lot more interested now. Yeah, and I just love Son. I don't like not owning him. I hate going into weekends without him because you just know what he's going to do. He's so greedy. He's so good. He's got 15 pointers in him any given game week, so I really want to get him in as soon as I can. Is Ali and Son the new Sterling and De Bruyne? I got rid of Sterling, and I'm not looking back there. He's just not doing it for his price tag. Much prefer to have Son or Ali over Sterling. De Bruyne is the big question mark for me, so I've still got him. I've been saying all along that he's a season keeper because he's underpriced this season. But for the first time this season, I'm starting to waver a little bit on De Bruyne. I'm not really concerned with him. It's more Man City I'm concerned with. Losing to United now. The league's gone for them. They're not going to catch Liverpool this season. So will we see Pep start to rotate more possibly? Will he start to prioritise Champions League as the best chance of silverware and maybe other cup competitions as well? De Bruyne, we know with his injury record that he's unlikely to start every game over the busy Christmas period. So I do have a few doubts over De Bruyne now. The hard part about it is he does have Arsenal next, and looking at De Bruyne's underlying stats from that United game, he was by far and away the best Man City attacker. And he has been over the last couple of game weeks as well. So will those underlying stats will we start seeing him convert them into FPL points, hopefully, for those of us who keep him? I think I'm going to keep De Bruyne for the Arsenal game, just because it's Arsenal and defensively they're not very good. So De Bruyne could exploit that. But I think if it wasn't for blank game week 18 coming up, and I've got other priorities really in my team that I need to address for that blank game week 18 to make sure I have 11 starters that week. I think if it wasn't for that, I would be much more likely to just do the De Bruyne to Son switch this week. Even though Son has Wolves away and Chelsea at home, that really doesn't scare me off Son. I think he can do really well in both of those fixtures. So I do like the De Bruyne to Son switch, simple as. But for me, I'm probably going to end up waiting a little bit longer to make that switch. Question from Alex Ball. Alex is a top manager and he's struggling this season. I think he's about 1.7 million. So Alex's question is, what advice would you give to us managers who take the game very seriously but things are not going right and are losing the enjoyment of the game? So there's going to be a lot of people in this scenario, and I can relate to it 100%. Going back to last season, last season was a real struggle for me. It was a real grind, and things never just things never took off for me last season, and it was my worst ever season. I finished about 516k overall, so it was a real slog, just a nightmare of a season. And a lot of people are having a similar season this season to what I had last year. A lot of top managers. Even looking at the Elite 64 league that I run, there's a lot of top managers still ranked 2 million, 3 million. So Alex, you're not alone here. What advice would I give to managers who are struggling? I think the most important point about this question is, if you're losing your enjoyment of the game, you need to take a step back and find a way of enjoying it, because if you're not enjoying the game, really we shouldn't be playing it. That is number one, and it's the hardest thing to do with FPL a lot of the time, is to enjoy it when things are not going well. But I think it's something I've become good at over the last maybe 2 or 3 seasons, whereas before I would have taken it very seriously and let it affect my mood and my daily life and stuff like that. And I've had to kind of train myself not to do that, because there is more to life, and it is just a game at the end of the day. I'm coming off the back of 3 red arrows. Things are frustrating, but I'm still enjoying the game. Looking forward to recording this podcast today. And again, you've just got to find a way to enjoy it, and you've got to just keep plucking away. You've got to probably set yourself small targets. Take small steps, game week by game week. Just try and chip away at that overall rank, or chip away at those people who are ahead of you in your mini league. Set yourself many targets. We've got a very busy period now. Set yourself a target of where you want to be on January 1st. Maybe try and chip away 300 or 400k off your rank, and then just try and smash the second half of the season. There's a lot of games still to be played. Most people will still have chips as well, and the chips haven't been great in recent seasons. But this season could be the one where triple captaincies get 75 points, or bench boosts get 30 to 40 points, which can make a huge difference. So yeah, just try and stay positive. Just chip away week to week, and just find a way of enjoying the game. Because at the end of the day, if you're not enjoying it, you've got to ask yourself, why am I playing it? And that should be everyone's goal, whether you're doing well or you're doing badly. This is a game that should be enjoyed by everyone, no matter how good or bad you're doing. So just try and have a positive mindset, because if you don't have a positive mindset, a negative mindset will lead to bad decisions. It will lead to overthinking. Just keep doing the obvious things, obvious captains, obvious players. Look for good form, good fixtures, good stats, and just keep chipping away. Things can change very quickly. If you put a run of 3 or 4 game weeks together, you can jump a million places in no time. So just try and stay positive is the main message there. Question from Aditya Sen. Is Rashford becoming essential, or should managers keep the faith with the VAJ? I'll say the VAJ rather than saying it the other way. So is Rashford essential, or should managers keep the faith with Vardy, Abraham and Jimenez? No player is essential. No player is ever essential in FPL. There's a lot of different ways to play this game. And there will be people who don't have Vardy right now and haven't had him all season, who will still probably finish top 50k. So don't let fear rule your motives here. Rashford has been looking extremely good in the last couple of fixtures, against Spurs and City. So I really want him. He's right up there near the top of my most wanted list, if not the number one, going into Gameweek 17. So the one I would probably move him for is Jimenez. Vardy and Abraham, I've got both of them, and it hasn't even crossed my mind to sell either. So Jimenez is probably the guy that needs to go if I want to fit in Rashford. And, watching the Wolves game against Brighton, to me, Jimenez looked absolutely shattered in that game. He's played a lot of football. He very rarely gets benched, even with all the Europa League games as well. So maybe he needs a rest. I think he is suspended for the Europa League this week, so at least he's got a week off this week before the Spurs game. I think a lot of people are going to keep him because he has Norwich in Gameweek 18. Now, is he worth keeping? I think Jossie was asking this question. Is it worth keeping Jimenez just for that Norwich fixture in Gameweek 18 at the expense of the likes of Rashford or Abraham? And I don't think it is. I think I would rather own Abraham or Rashford for the next 2 weeks as opposed to keeping Jimenez for Spurs and then Norwich. Looking at the stats as well, going back to those, looking at the Wolves-Brighton game, I think Jota had 6 shots and Jimenez had 0 shots. So that's slightly worrying for us Jimenez owners. He did create 4 chances in the game though. So, Jimenez has always got that. Even if he's not scoring goals, he's creating chances, which is a bonus with him. But for me, I think selling Jimenez is fine ahead of Spurs. Spurs, Mourinho has been talking up this week that he's going to give a lot of the first team players the night off in the Champions League, and I think there's been quotes that he's going to work really intensely with the defence this week. So he's got a full week to work with those defenders, and it wouldn't be a surprise to see Mourinho come out against Wolves and get a clean sheet off the back of that. So I think selling Jimenez is fine. I think keeping him is fine as well, and I may end up keeping him myself because I would probably need a -4 to get to Rashford. As much as I would like to get Rashford in, I think keeping Jimenez for Spurs and Norwich is fine as well. I think going back to last season, I'm pretty sure Jimenez scored against Spurs home and away. So hopefully good vibes there when Jimenez sees those Spurs shirts from last season, that he can get himself on the score sheet again. And obviously Norwich Game Week 18 is a very attractive fixture, and Jimenez is actually a pretty viable captaincy option that week because there's not many other very good captains in that game week. So again, it depends on your own setup. If you can get to Rashford easily, or if you don't have Abraham, and if you can get to Abraham easily from Jimenez, I think that's fine. I wouldn't like to not have Abraham for that fixture against Bournemouth this weekend. Nathan Ake, their best defender, is out injured now, so it's Bournemouth are in a relegation scrap. They've got so many injuries, a bad run of form, so Chelsea could blow them away this weekend if they're in the mood. So I'm hopeful that Abraham will do really well this weekend. Question from Shiva FPL. Another good question here. With the increased number of people playing FPL, ready-made stats and content, should the measure of a good season be lower than it was 5 years ago? In other words, is finishing 50k now equivalent to finishing 10k 5 year ago? So I think this is important. A lot of us, set top 10k as a target, but I probably said it, on a podcast earlier in the season as well, that we have to readjust that because there's over 7 million players playing now. Go back 5 years ago, there was only 2 or 3 million. So just simply because of the number of competitors that you have now, the number of people you're up against, top 10k is very, very hard to get nowadays. So I think the way I look at it now is if you get a top 100k finish, you've had a good season. If you can get a top 50k finish, you've had a very good season. And if you can get a top 10k finish, you've had an excellent season. And to go one step further, if you get a top 1k finish, you can call yourself a legend. You can buy yourself one of those fantasy football legend t-shirts this summer. So yeah, I think you have to readjust. And I'm sitting at about 350k now. If someone offered me a top 50k finish right now, would I take it? Yes, 100%. I think a top 50k finish is a really good season. But again, obviously, I'm still targeting that initial, start of the season. I always target top 10k, and that is still my target. And I think it is definitely still achievable as well. So that's just a few thoughts there. Don't beat yourself up if you don't get a top 10k or if you're, lagging behind. Top 50k, top 100k. That's really good seasons there as well, given how many people are playing the game now. Obviously, you need a lot of luck to go your way, we're seeing it with a lot of people this season who are doing really well. They're getting a lot of luck. They're looking into De Bruyne vice captaincies. They're looking into 21 points from Lundstrom off the bench. They're looking into captain and Manny this week and having a good vice captain. So the stars do need to align for you to get a top 10k finish. So yeah, don't beat yourself up. And I think something I'm guilty of, and a lot of people are guilty of, is looking at your overall rank too much. It's game week. What are we? We're game week 16. Overall rank doesn't matter, but we still look at it because it's in the top corner of the website every time we log in, and we get bogged down by it. I really wish the overall rank wasn't there, because I wouldn't even look at it if it wasn't there. I wouldn't go trying to find it. Because as I say, Game Week 38 is the only time that it matters. When May and June rolls around, if someone asks you what was your rank in Game Week 16, you're not going to know. You're not going to remember. All you're going to remember is where you are at the end of the season, and that's all that matters. And that's something you should try and do. Try ignore your overall rank and try not to worry too much about where you are in your mini league. Don't worry that you're 7th in your mini league now. Worry about where you are in Game Week 37, 38, because that's all that matters. Question from Aaron. What is the plan for Game Week 18 with Liverpool players? So my plan is pretty straightforward. I've got Trent and I've got Manny. Now, my initial plan is to just bench those two that game week, because I'm going to want them long term. Most likely, well, there's probably a few question marks over Trent Alexander-Arnold, which I'm going to get to soon, because I've got wildcard on the back of my mind, and I've left that question deliberately until last, because it's probably going to be a long-winded answer. Quite simply, I plan to bench Manny and Trent for Game Week 18, and then wildcard thereafter. So yeah, that's my plan, quite simply, for that one. Question from Jake: what to do with Zaha? Back-to-back blanks. Is it time to let him go for a better option, or keep the faith because of favourable fixtures? So I brought in Zaha 2 game weeks ago. It's been a bit of a disaster, but I think I'm probably going to give him 2 more weeks. He's got Brighton and Newcastle next. I do think selling him is absolutely fine. Sometimes it's good to admit that maybe it wasn't the best transfer we did. Maybe we got excited because he had back-to-back goals and he had good fixtures. I still think it was it was a justifiable transfer. It's easy to say in hindsight now that it was a mistake, but I think if you can upgrade him to the likes of Maddison and Pulisic and these guys and Grealish even, I think that's fine to move him on as well. But again, it goes back to me having other issues to deal with Game Week 18 in mind. So he's probably going to get 2 more weeks for me against Brighton and Newcastle, and hopefully he can repay the faith there. Palace, just like I said earlier, they don't score many goals. So maybe if I had looked into the stats a bit more, before I made that transfer, I would have been maybe more reluctant to bring Zaha in. Maybe it was a bit of a nostalgic pick as well, because he's been a good asset over the last couple of seasons. But again, I'm still hopeful. Brighton were pretty poor defensively against Wolves, and Newcastle, have been conceding goals as well. So I am hopeful that hopefully that he can come good over them 2 game weeks. But I'm probably not expecting too much there. So selling him, I think, is absolutely fine. Right, last question, and this is a big one. This is about wildcard. So, a question from Dave was: which players are you looking to bring in with your wildcard? So, first of all, I'll mention the players I am interested in bringing in, and then I'll talk a little bit about what my current thoughts are about wildcard, because my thinking has changed slightly. So, first of all, the players I'd be looking at getting on a wildcard are goalkeeper. It would probably be the Palace guy, Guaita, or Matt Ryan. I've only got Vardy from Leicester, so I need more Leicester cover. I would probably go Soyuncu or Evans, and I want to get Maddison as well. In terms of Spurs, I've only got Ali. I would like to get Son, and I'd probably get Aurier on a wild card as well. In terms of Manchester United, I want Rashford. If I couldn't afford him on a wild card, I would probably get Martial as an alternative. They've got really good fixtures. I really like Pulisic. A lot of people are going to be selling Pulisic because he's got 4 blanks, but watching him in those 4 games and looking at his numbers from those 4 games, I really cannot understand how he has blanked in those 4 games. So I like the idea of getting him in when probably a lot of people are losing patience with him. I think Pulisic will have a big second half of the season for Chelsea, so I like him on a wild card as well. I've started to tinker around with a possible wild card this week, which is never a good idea, because whenever you do that, you just want to activate it that week. So I've said on previous podcasts that game week 20 was when I was eyeing up the wild card, which is the last game week that you can use it. But I had a look at, a deeper look at the fixtures this week, and I was looking at the squad I would put together for game week 20, and I was looking at their fixtures in game week 19. So I'm just going to get them up in front of me here. Game week 19, a lot of the teams I would be targeting and the players I would be targeting on a wildcard have really good fixtures. So that makes me think I should go a week earlier, go game week 19 to get those good fixtures rather than waiting until game week 20. So got the fixtures here now. Spurs are at home to Brighton, game week 19. So I like a Spurs triple up there. Chelsea are home to Southampton in game week 19. So Pulisic, I would like him for that one alongside Abraham. Crystal Palace are at home to West Ham, so if I got the goalkeeper and if I held on to Kelly, I like the defensive double up at home to West Ham there for Crystal Palace. What else is here? Manchester United are at home to Newcastle, game week 19, so there's your Rashford, your Martial, a very good fixture there as well. The only downside to wildcard game week 19 is probably the fact that Leicester play Liverpool, but if I had Vardy, Maddison, Mane, I would happily play all three in that game. There could be plenty of goals in that one. So initially I was thinking to move my wildcard plans back a week to game week 19, but then I had another look today and I've put a wildcard squad together today that I could, if I hit the button today, I'll be very happy with the wildcard squad. So a lot of those players that I mentioned, I would probably lose Trent and go completely budget defence just to allow that Vardy, Rashford, Abraham front line with a midfield of Mane, Ali, Son, and then one of Maddison or Pulisic. That would leave a defence of the likes of Soyuncu, Aurier, Lundstram would stay, Kelly would stay, and then I don't know who the fifth one would be, but it would be a cheap defender as well. So I've really got myself into a pickle now. In terms of my transfers this week, it's going to be one extreme or the other. I'm either going to bank my transfer or I'm going to wildcard. So it's one extreme or the other. If I bank my transfer this week, it will be with a view to wildcard game week 19. So game week 18, I would have 2 free transfers and I would get Grealish in for Cantwell if he doesn't get booked this weekend. And to do that, I would get rid of Tomori and just go down to a 4.1 or 4.2 million defender. So I'm really torn now. I'm really torn having put that team together. So if I look at my team on paper for this weekend, game week 17, it looks pretty strong. Pope's home to Newcastle, even though he's been awful recently. Trent is home to Watford. De Bruyne has got Arsenal. Zaha has got Brighton. So there's, Jimenez has got Spurs. There's probably 5 players that I would lose on a wild card. So I've got to weigh up, that game week 17 team that I've got at the minute and weigh it up against, the wildcard team, which would probably involve bringing in Maddison and Soyuncu, who've got Norwich at home. It would get me Son, who I really want, and it would just improve things overall in the squad. So, losing Trent would probably be the hardest part of that, but, it is only one game because I probably don't mind losing Trent. Probably for a 5 or 6 week period, looking at Liverpool's fixtures, if it allows me to get that power front 4 or front 5, front 6 I should say, 4 strong midfielders and 3 strong forwards. That's actually 7. So that's what happens when you record a podcast early in the morning. The maths is not very good. So that it's Tuesday. I think Champions League is going to play a big part in my decision making here. So, the Spurs guys are probably going to get the week off in the Champions League. Rashford's probably going to get the night off. If Pulisic gets the Champions League off tonight as well, I think that will push me towards a wildcard this week. I'm really torn, and I probably won't make a decision until later in the week, Thursday, Friday. I don't worry too much about team value. So even if I don't decide midweek, I don't mind having to build it later in the game week. So I wish I had an answer for you. I don't. I've probably fried my brain, doing this podcast in terms of the wild card. So I'm really 50-50, I think, on this week. It's either going to be this week or it's going to be game week 19. So moving on to captaincy, touching on captaincy quickly for game week 17. Vardy home to Norwich, no brainer for me. I'm not going to move it away from Vardy. Mane is a very good option against Watford, as is Salah. depends on, let's see what happens with Liverpool Champions League this week as well. How many minutes will those two guys get? I always like Vardy because he gets a rest over the likes of Mane. So, you don't get a better fixture than Norwich at home. So, for me, in form, he's delivered for me 5 game weeks in a row. There's no reason for me to move away from Vardy. Abraham, I think, is a good option as well at home to Bournemouth without Nathan Ake. Rashford is at home to Everton, which is a decent option as well. But Everton were really good at the weekend, beating Chelsea. Bit of a manager bounce there under Duncan Ferguson, probably absolutely just roaring in their faces before kickoff. I think there were some crazy stats from that game. The tackles that Everton put in. I think they put in more tackles than any other team this season, and there might have been some kind of stat that they put in more tackles or they ran more than they have done in the last 10 seasons. So if ever there was a manager bounce, there's one. So that probably enough to put me off Rashford against Everton when there is other good options like Vardy, Mane and Salah. I've mentioned my transfers. It's going to be a bank or it's going to be a wild card. So let's see what happens there for the next couple of days. If you've enjoyed the podcast and you want to know what I'm doing later in the week, I will be doing another Patreon podcast on Thursday. If you enjoy the podcast and you just want to support me in what I do this full time, so you can do so patreon.com/FPL General. Anyone who is in London on Friday night, I'm travelling down from Glasgow with FPL Dave to attend the Who Got the Assist /Fantasy Football Hub FPL meetup. I'm calling it my own Christmas party because I work from home. I have 2 supermarkets beside me. I've got an Aldi and I've got a Morrison supermarket. And because I work for myself, I was tempted to ask if I could join the supermarket on their Christmas party. But thankfully, this is happening instead. So this is going to be my Christmas night out in London. So if any of you are in London Friday night, the Marleybone Sports Bar and Grill, pop in. There's going to be a lot of people there. I think the guys are probably underestimating how many people are going to turn up there. So it should be a great night. It's dangerous because the deadline is Saturday morning, so a lot of people there are going to be having a few bevies and making transfers and all that. So I'm going to try and be careful, especially if I wildcard. It could be an absolute disaster. I activate my wildcard this week and then go to that meetup and wake up on Saturday morning with Andy Carroll and Theo Walcott in my team. So I'm going to have to be careful. I need to make sure I wake up before 11:30 on Saturday. But yeah, pop in if you're in London. Should be a great night. Looking forward to meeting like-minded individuals to talk FPL. Just have a really good night out. That's the best thing about FPL. Brings strangers together. I had a really good meet up in Glasgow a couple of weeks ago. I think it was about 10 of us. None of us knew each other beforehand, and we had a really good day just watching the games and chatting about FPL. I just want to finish the podcast this week on a sad note. Anyone who has been part of the FPL community for the last 2 or 3 seasons will be aware of an amazing family, Gemma, Chris and Harrison. Chris has been battling cancer the last couple of years and unfortunately passed away yesterday, which I found myself getting upset, reading the tweets and seeing some of them pictures. Just a heartbreaking story. They've been an inspiration over the last couple of seasons for me, and I'm sure for many other people as well. And I know this story has touched a lot of people in the FPL community, and it really puts life into perspective, and it puts FPL into perspective. So, next time you're having a bad game week or you find yourself getting frustrated with FPL, just think of that family. Think of Chris, think of Gemma, and think of Harrison. And there is more important things to life in FPL, and there is a Just Giving page set up. And I donated myself yesterday, and I retweeted it as well. And I would love if some of my listeners could donate to that as well, just to send a few bob and good wishes to Harrison and Gemma at this tough time. So if you go to my Twitter page and just scroll down, you'll see I retweeted that Just Giving page yesterday. So if you can donate a few bob, please do. Amazing family, and it really touched me, that story, and thinking of them at this tough time. So good luck in Game Week 17, folks. I hope it's a good one. Green arrows, and hopefully, and even if it's not green arrows, it is only FPL at the end of the day. So enjoy your weekend, whatever you're up to. Enjoy the Champions League this week. Hopefully see a few of you in London on Friday, and I'll be back next Tuesday with another episode. Thanks for listening, folks.